Welcome back to Media 7, where it's News Mash time. This week's has a theme.
It's The Tonight Show with Jay Leno.
In the midst of the most serious economic crisis in decades, there's only one thing for a responsible national leader to do: hit the talk shows.
The President of the United States, Barack Obama.
And thus, while his predecessor preferred to be seen nonchalantly hitting a few golf balls, President Obama talked basketball and bowling with Jay Leno, and managed to undo the most visionary disabilities policy in history with this whoopsie.
I bowled a 129. Oh no, that's very good. Yeah. Oh, that's very good, Mr. President.
This is like Special Olympics or something.
No, that's
Such are the perils of talking on the telly. Witness Kevin Rudd's swearing moment.
Because there's going to be the usual political political storm over that.
There was no cussing from our Prime Minister as he helped kick off One's new Q&A show. Come to think of it, have you ever heard John Key swear? But he was kind of vague.
Can you tell me how many jobs are going to be lost in the public sector?
Look, don't know.
Meanwhile, this is an actual reality show that finished last week in Canada.
Who has what it takes to lead the country?
It's going to be me because I can walk on my hands.
It's going to be me because anything these guys can do, I can do in heels.
No way, it's going to be me, David Suk, because I'm taller than all of the three.
But our favourite TV leader of all is the bizarro New Zealand Prime Minister from Flight of the Conchords.
He's terribly jet lagged. He thinks it's tomorrow. Don't wake him. Hey, can you take a photo of me with him?
Yeah, get in, Brett.
He's waking up. Get out. Go on, go. He's seen you. Come back. He's seen you.
Sorry about that, Murray. Dropped off there. Bloody jet lag. And what day is it? Yesterday?
No, it's today, sir.
Oh, yes, of course it is. Well, I'm Brian, the Prime Minister of New Zealand.
Yes, we know that.
It's very nice to meet you, my lord.
Show us your growler, New Zealand! And I should point out that there is, of course, TV footage of John Key swearing. 2 school children, nonetheless, but we discovered it after we put that together. Now, we used to know where we were, culturally speaking. Auckland was the dumb blonde and Wellington the bohemian brunette. But then Metro magazine ran a cover story making the case for Auckland, not Wellington, as the country's cultural capital. There were cries of outrage from south of the Bombays, scuffles in the media, claim and counterclaim. Well, we're joined now by the author of that Metro story, Simon Wilson, and by cultural titans from each centre. Tommy Honey, who has a deep background in creative management and education, and in the blue corner, founding artistic director of the Auckland Festival, Simon Prast. Welcome to you all. Good to see you all together.
Indeed. Happily.
Simon, why did you write that story? Did it need to be written?
Well, it's interesting you say it caused howls of outrage south of the Bombay Hills, because of course that is true. This subject means an awful lot to Wellingtonians. They were all extras in Lord of the Rings, of course, and it is compulsory down there to play Fat Freddy's Drop in all the cafes and bars. So, you know, it's a subject close to their hearts.
You're like the ex-Wellingtonian, like the ex-smoker, aren't you?
I am. I'm the convert who knows the truth more than anyone. That's right. Yeah, I've been in Auckland for 5 years, and I love it here. And actually, one of the reasons I wrote this story was that I realised that I was, having been involved in the creative arts in Wellington, and theatre in particular, I realised that I was surrounded by a much more vigorous and lively and creatively stimulating environment here than I had been in the city that I grew up in and spent a lot of my life in. And I started to think about why that was. You know, and of course you can point to some obvious things. Wellington is extremely good at promoting itself as the creative capital. They've needed to do that because if you took the International Arts Festival and wearable arts out of Wellington, you'd have a very large hole where you're supposed to have an economy. So this is a serious issue for them in a way that it hasn't been perceived as quite so serious an issue for Auckland. And that brings me to the real reason why I wrote the story, not really to get up the noses of people I know and love, but to say to Auckland, actually there is, to the powers that be in Auckland, to the business community, to the politicians of Auckland and to the wider public, you know, there really is a big thing in the arts that is commercially important, economically important, and Auckland is a city that underperforms economically, and it could do much better, and one of the ways it could do much better is to take its very vibrant creative scene more seriously.
So was there any input to the decision to do the story from Alex Sweeney? Because he has engaged a public relations company and they are trying to gin up precisely this kind of discussion.
That's right, and actually I've received all the releases. I've received the releases from his public relations company too. Alex, who I know, was not involved in the creation of the story. I talked to him as one of the sources and quote him in the story, but he certainly took no part in the idea to write it or had any role in informing it. Of course not.
So, Tommy, what did you make of the story? Did you howl with outrage?
Oh, I howl all the time. I'm just keen to know, Simon, were you an elf in Lord of the Rings? Because you were living there when it was made.
I was,
kind of tall.
Yeah, that's right.
I came up to Auckland today looking for some hobbits after what I read on the Fish and Chips website. Haven't seen any yet. Kind of have seen some pretty badly dressed people.
Saw some lovely weather though, didn't you?
Oh, unbelievable! Of course. Boy, trading 4 degrees any day of the week. It's beautiful up here. Wonderful. What I liked about the article. Okay, I'm not sure how much the weather had to do with the culture, but I'm working on it. What I liked about the article was what you said should happen in Auckland, and I think it was more prescriptive than descriptive. It really went to town, particularly in the latter part, about what Auckland needs to do to make itself much more active in the arts, and I think that that's really at the heart of it. I mean, everyone knows that Auckland is, Sydney for beginners, and the thing about Auckland as a city is it's aspirational. It wants to be somewhere else. It wants to be Sydney, it wants to be LA, not Melbourne, definitely not Wellington. But Wellington is really happy with being Wellington. And in Wellington, we really embrace the arts.
Don't you think Wellington's really happy at not being Palmerston North? Isn't that really the limit?
Yeah. And I always thought the greatest thing about Palmerston North was that it was not Hamilton. But in Wellington, we embrace the arts. That's what happens. But in Auckland, they tolerate them. In Wellington, we're passionate about them. In Auckland, the arts are available, and more so, but they're not essential.
Of course, we've just had an arts festival here, extremely successful.
25%
tickets sales increases. We've just had Pacifica with 200,000 people at Western Springs. Yep. We have the big day out every year. You can go on with the figures.
And we put 150,000 people into Cuba Street.
Yes, you did, and that's a fabulous festival.
Especially when you've got 4 times the population.
Well, that's a festival that's been built year after year after year.
I think we need to bring Simon in here now.
Hi, Simon.
How are you, Tom? Good. I rather know what you're going to say, but what I would say to you is that can't we just let Wellington have this one? They are deeply proud and they value their cultural heritage. They promote their arts better. Why not let Wellington have this one?
Wellington is welcome to have it, and Wellington is going to get it. It's just really what Auckland misses out on because Wellington has it, and it is a numbers game. And when it comes to cultural capital, if you use the term to describe money, particularly the money that the vote provides the arts in this country. I just did a little bit of thing on the net, as it were. And the Wellington-based Ministry of Arts and Culture and the Wellington-based Creative New Zealand, $68,136,780 is available to annually to major arts organisations and institutions. Now, $9,556,000 makes it out of Wellington, which means that $58,580,280 never sees the light of day north of Lambton Quay.
Which is why Labour lost Auckland last year, right?
And fair enough, and fair enough. So that's nearly $60 million of taxpayers' money pours into the Wellington economy annually. That's a per capita seat subsidy of $133. In Auckland, the per capita seat subsidy, $7.35. Now,
we do quite well, really, don't we?
We do quite well. I mean, what Wellington lacks in talent, it makes up in self-congratulation, I have to say.
Yeah, we're absolutely sycophantic. I just want to make sure none of that money has reached my pocket.
Well, up here, Pacifica nearly didn't happen because of a funding shortfall.
That's right.
And I just read that Downstage Theatre, God love it, has not been able to find an audience for a very long time now. But because you cannot close a theatre in Wellington, they've managed to skive another $325,000 out of the national pocket. When in Auckland, Pacifica nearly didn't happen. Now, I think that's inequitable.
I think one of the things there, if you look at Downstage Theatre, yes, Downstage has been in trouble with Creative New Zealand in terms of being able to secure its funding. The direct corollary, of course, is that Auckland lost the homes of Mercury Theatre and Theatre Corporate, and then the Watershed as well. And the Auckland City Council had a different role to the one played by Wellington City Council in those episodes.
I don't think anyone can dispute that the Auckland City Council at the moment is Auckland Theatre Company's largest competitor.
Yeah.
And I think that its role needs to be seriously examined.
They think they're doing well, but there is a lot more they could be doing and must be doing.
Well, there's going to be a great big hole dug shortly right out in front of the Aotea Centre, where we fix the car park. And so I guess as that building is perched on the edge of it, at least we'll know why it's called the Edge.
You give it a nudge. I mean, I think one big difference between Auckland and Wellington is that the City Council down there supports the arts in a way that your council has a lot to learn from. Just talk briefly about Downstage, and you mentioned those 3 Auckland theatres that closed. I will say that when that happened, no one in Wellington crowed about it. They mourned the loss of 3 fine institutions. What interests me is that Downstage has 1 bad year in 5. It was actually 3 bad shows, possibly only 1 bad show. It's perilous, it's at risk, and people give new meaning to the word culture vulture. They're hanging around to pick over the bones.
I think that's
and I actually think that we need to sustain our organisations across the country. You can do all the maths you want, but in the end, a lot of the organisations you're talking about, you're saying never saw the light of day out of Wellington. Actually, they were organisations that toured to Auckland. 2 of the shows, the 13 theatre shows in the festival, were Wellington shows that were incubated there. And one of the things that interests me is that Wellington is the arts incubator for the country. There are fantastic organisations there that actually generate the arts and send them out.
I think that's one on arts incubator. What are you based it on?
I think that's one of the. I think that's one of the great myths that actually.
Unique.
You ever heard of Silo?
Yeah, which takes a lot of BATS shows, but doesn't send money down.
Now, Tommy, if you're talking about
Downstage is going to be a receiver.
Dance, if you're talking about visual arts, if you're talking about literature, if you're talking about theatre now, if you're talking about popular music, rock and pop and hip hop and so on, if you're talking about television, if you're talking about film, with the exception of Peter Jackson and Richard Taylor, you have to take a deep breath because it's a long list. Those things are all primarily now incubated out of Auckland, and that's the big issue.
No, I'll say they're made, but I don't want to say they're incubated.
No, they are incubated. They are made and incubated because of the sheer weight of creative talent that exists here.
Now, I'm going to wade in Tommy's defence here, because much as we love Auckland, a visitor to Auckland wandering around looking for culture would probably just get confused. Whereas in Wellington, you can stand there in front of the City Gallery, you can look around, you can see that marvellous bridge, you can see the town hall next to you, Te Papa's not too far away.
Well, it's a very small place.
Yeah.
Wellington, 440,000 people. It's a very small place. 1.3 million people live in Auckland.
Yeah.
The opportunity for the country is in Auckland. This place is the capital of Asia Pacific. It is the most ethnically diverse conglomeration of people in the country.
And still people don't go out and see anything.
No, they do.
I mean, you've got to ask.
That's not true. That's not true.
That's another myth.
Oh, I don't think it is. 91% of people in Wellington have support the arts and you know actively support the arts, whereas for the rest of the country it's 73%.
Why is Downstage nearly closing them? Why is Downstage closing?
Right?
We can't let the facts get in the way, though, can we?
Well, I'm waiting for some really hard facts rather than just jumbled numbers. You know, I mean,
you did have.
I mean, I talked also about emerging artists. I was talking about incubating. There's a trust in Wellington called the EAT, Emerging Artists Trust, entirely privately funded by one woman. Set the whole thing up to help people, give them small amounts of money so that they can actually get on their way when they leave whatever institution they've trained in and make stuff.
And you
potentially.
And you know, Tommy, in those areas of the arts that I listed before, there are similar things happening in Auckland. You know, it's not as if there is no arts in one city or the other, and we'll fight ourselves to the death to decide which city it is. Of course, there are 2 strong art spaces in this city, in this country, and one of them is Auckland and the other one is Wellington. So it's not as if, you know, it's only one or the other.
But the money doesn't reflect that.
The money doesn't reflect it, and you were right, Simon, before in saying that part of the problem for Auckland is it's much more big and sprawling and diverse than Wellington is. That's certainly true. The other part of it is that, you know, Auckland is a place that makes you tear your hair out, because you look at the beauty that we're surrounded by, and you look at the terrific work that is done all over the place, and whether it's going into a local pub and seeing a terrific little band, or whether it's going to an art gallery and seeing something that's really cutting edge on an international scale, or whether it's a big popular show like My Fair Lady, or whatever it is, you look at it all and you go, why is this not making the city hum?
Yes.
Why are we surrounded by such fabulous natural environment and we don't have the sense that the city is humming? And there's no simple answer to that. And one of the reasons, the big reason in the end I wrote that article was to say, well, we've got to find an answer to that. We've got to have everybody who has influence and power and cares to make it really zing.
To get an audience. When you do a show at the Maidment Theatre, for example, I used to say that it seats 440 people. It's like landing a fully loaded jumbo jet in the middle of the city. I can put on a play that will bring in what you call cultural tourists by the plane load. Yep. Now, where are these people going to park?
And where do they go for a drink afterwards?
Exactly, exactly. Right. And those are things which need to be addressed by the powers that be, recognising that there is money to be made here and that these people need to have a place to park their cars that is safe, places close by where they can go and make an entire evening of it, because let's face it, it is like, you know, driving halfway across the world, you know, to make a commitment to go and see an arts event in the centre of Auckland, to come from the suburb. It's a long way.
And if Auckland City Council had a tenth of the commitment that Wellington City Council has to these things, you'd blow us out of the water.
Well, I think Wellington needs to be applauded, you know, because it has made a little go a very long way with that fantastic campaign.
Or a lot go a very little way.
I'm going to have to bring this to a close. I wonder if I wonder if perhaps the part of it is that when Aucklanders, when Wellingtonians discover something good, they tell everyone, and when Aucklanders do, they keep it to themselves, so no one else gets it.
It's as true in sports as it is in the arts. In Auckland,
one figure I found shocked me. Every year, Te Papa gets $36 million. Every year, Auckland Museum gets nothing. That, to my mind, is shocking.
An Auckland Museum is, apart from Te Papa, is the outstanding success in terms of tourist numbers of any facility in the country.
That's right.
I am actually going to have to stop you. Perhaps there could be a response in the Wellington equivalent of Metro. Whoops, there isn't one.
Oh, don't need one.
Well, I don't know. And that is all from Auckland tonight. I might point out that while our sister show Backbenchers takes place in a pub haunted by politicians, we share a stage here with comedians. Make of that what you will. Thanks to our panellists, Simon Wilson, Tommy Honey and Simon Prast, and to our advertising panel, Hazel Phillips, John Schofield and Daryl Parsons. And thank you for watching wherever you are. One more thing. On last week's show, we saw the Minister of Broadcasting express his desire to see this channel and TVNZ6 on the Sky platform. This week, we can tell you that it's happening from July the 1st. We hope you don't mind sharing us. And we'll be back with Media 7 next week. Until then, goodbye.